This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Do you work in the film industry? Are you freelance? Or perhaps you have a 9 to 5? No matter what you do, mental health affects us all. I struggled early on in my career with the uncertainty of if and when I would ever work again, struggling to pay my bills, or simply with anxiety. Don't know about you, but being an actor, it's very important for me to maintain structure in the downtimes, and I found not only exercise, but talking to someone for me was a game changer. And so Life in Film has partnered with BetterHelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, BetterHelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. That's betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. Welcome to A Life in Film. I'm Elliot James Langridge. I'm an actor, writer, and apparently a podcaster, and I love film. This is the podcast that we ask our guests from in front and behind the camera, how did they get their foot in the door? What was the key to unlocking their success? What's their story? Previous guests include Dexter Fletcher, Natalie Emmanuel, Tony Curran, and Phil Dunster, to name a few. An actor who's been on an incredible run with a string of Netflix hits including the critically acclaimed The Diplomat. Along the way, he's worked with acclaimed filmmakers such as Alex Garland, Christopher Nolan, and the Wachowskis. We chat about how he was on the verge of quitting acting when he got the phone call to say he had a part in The Dark Knight Rises. And to this day, he still has the poster in his office as a reminder to never give up. We talk about what he's learned about auditioning over the years, and of course, his most embarrassing moment, which was on the set of Interstellar. Our guest today is actor David Gysai.
It's a life in film. 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 Woo!
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Hey man, I'm good. How are you?
Really well, thank you. Really well.
Good. Yeah, you're doing all right. You've got The Diplomat out. You've got a couple of things on the go. It seems to be all good.
It's nice. I'm not even gonna front. It's really nice. It's really lovely. I'm just thinking. I was just reading through some of the things we're going to talk about, and then and one of them was saying about success, and then I was thinking, what is that? What is success? Which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah,
I mean,
right now I'm good.
It's a hard question, though. That is a hard question because a lot of actors that come on here, producers, directors, whoever they are, it's odd to talk about someone's career in terms of a career because it's so many stepping stones, isn't it? It's little tiny footsteps towards where you are now, and it's kind of mind blowing to talk about it as a whole. As an audience looking at your career, it's kind of easy, but for you, I'm sure it's a bit of a strange one to sort of try and figure out where you went right, where you went wrong, and all those little choices. First of all, I just want to say I really appreciate you coming on here, man. You're one of these actors that I look up to, and I see your work, and I'm like, that is where I want to be personally as an actor. And I think you coming on here is great for young actors listening to this podcast and be able to hear, how you started and what that kind of, the first couple of steps was and where that passion came from. So I appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Wow, that's lovely to hear. Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be on and chat.
Where did this come from? I mean, you're obviously from London. Was there something in your upbringing that brought acting into your life and made you want to kind of pursue that?
Not really, not like from the family home per se. I think there's this story, and I've told it a couple of times. I'll tell it again here because maybe there's someone out there that's not heard me say this before. But when I was in nursery, we did a school play, and I got to play this African chief, and I just based him on my uncles that I used to see around, and had a lot of fun. I can't really remember it, but my nursery nurse said to my parents, they called them in and said, you should really send this child to a drama school. And the story goes that my dad said, to a what? And they said a drama school. And he said, I did not come to this country for my son to do concert. And so then they sent my brother and I away shortly after that to schooling outside of London. And I didn't really stumble across acting again. I found my way in sports, on sports fields and pitches. I always found history fascinating. But what I found fascinating about history was, like, you know, if we were talking about the Romans, I would be thinking about what the sand felt like under their feet, what that would have been like marching in sandals. Do you know what I mean? If we were talking about the Moors or the ancient African civilizations, I'd be thinking about my family and thinking about our ancestors and thinking about, like, living and breathing and smelling those smells. Not that we talked about ancient African civilizations in GCSE history, because, you know, we don't talk about that. But when I would think about that, or be led to books that would lead me towards that, I'd think about that, the tastes, the smells, and the stories always felt very visceral to me. I wasn't very good at remembering dates, but I could remember the journey through and the relationships between different characters in these stories. So then when I did I ended up doing a school play. And I remember there was really two things about this school play that really hit me. One of them was the camaraderie. That blew my mind. You know, I'd ended up in a school which was a great school. I had a fantastic time, but it had very different, like, groupings. You were the sports group or the music group, or then we had the goths and the emos. So you were kind of defined a lot by that. But when we did a play, it's called the Buds, the Bishop's Holt Operatic and Dramatic Society, would put on these plays. And everyone came together, and I saw, like, we were just a team that had a show to do. And we worked really hard and had a lot of pride in delivering that show. And I fell in love with that. I fell in love with that kind of teamwork and that sense of camaraderie. Then the other thing was me being on stage, and I kind of said my first line, and the whole audience went, "Oh my gosh," and they cracked up. And my ego jumped out of my head and went, "This is it. This is what we need to do." And I was like, whoa. And then it jumped back in my skin, and I thought, remember your next line and then get off stage.
Oh, wow. That's mad that you remember that moment so clearly.
Oh, yeah. I remember seeing my old PE teacher. I think he was the third row, and he was beaming, where I could see something in his face as well. And then afterwards, I think we were playing a cup match or something, and he said to me, he said, "Now, Jesse," just as we were walking to warm up, he said, "Now, Jesse, you're a very good actor, very good, but you know you're a much better sportsman, don't you?" Because he knew he was losing me. He was losing me to the theatre side. But yeah,
that's brilliant.
So, yeah, I remember that.
Do you remember what that line was that made the audience?
Yeah, I do remember it, because I was quite nervous about reading, and in the read-through, I kept saying, Rose, Rose. It was the play was Gypsy, and the line was actually, Madame Rose, will you open this door? And it was written as M-E. So I was just in the read-through just going, Rose, Rose, will you open this door? And everyone was kind of cracking up. And then someone very graciously said to me, I think it's actually Madame. I was like, madam, they said, and I was like, yeah. So it was Madame role, was that line. And I think because I'd gone to a school which there wasn't many black guys and girls in that school, so I had a very kind of African American accent, and so when I came out with that line, it kind of really popped, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I wasn't known for acting as well, so it was a bit of a shock to see me, who had been heavily involved in other parts of the school, on stage. So it just worked. It felt good. It felt really good.
Yeah. Well, looking at your early work as well, you've done not only one, but two, maybe three, even five of the rites of passage. So you've done all the Holby City, The Bill, Casualty, you know, all the ones that, you know, normally it's like you've got to do one of them to be considered an actor when you first start your career, but you've done pretty much all of them, all the big ones. You know, starting up from the ground up. What was that like, going and doing your first? Can you remember your first few auditions, what that process was like?
Yeah, I can. So I remember Casualty out of all of those the most, and the reason being was it had come probably after a year of trying to get that breakthrough. I'd done a couple of adverts. I'd done something for BBC Worldwide, which was quite a lot. I was still at university, and I did I think we did like 13 episodes, but it didn't, because it wasn't on national TV, it didn't feel like I had really crossed that line, that rites of passage line. And I remember the Casualty one, I remember asking the director, I said, what was it that got me this role? Because I said, I've been up for so many and I feel like I'm nailing it, and it doesn't come off, and it doesn't come off, and it doesn't come off. And he said something to me which I still remember to this day. He said, do you know what it is, David? He said, I can't pinpoint it for you, but he said in the initial audition phase, and this was before self-tapes, but I would have gone into a casting director, and then he would have seen the tape and then called me back for a recall, and then we met and he hired me. He said in that initial phase, I'm not even looking for the words to be bang on. I am looking for an essence in someone's performance where I can see that character come alive. And when I get that essence, that's when I call people back. And then from that, I just go, okay, this person's interpretation is the one that either really aligns itself to mine, or the one that I find I didn't see it being played that way, but I'm happy to go along with that. And I guess what that taught me, Elliot, was that actually you digging down deep and working out what your interpretation is, and then running with that and being brave with that is either gonna align yourself with what the director wants, or at least open up a conversation and a discussion for the director to say, okay, hadn't really seen that, but tell me a bit more. And then I found with TV a lot of the time, because it's so quick, they're often looking for people to answer questions or problems for them. So if you come in and you've got a suggestion of a solution, then that's helpful.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's so many, as you say, there's so many ways of kind of interpreting, if you're going into an audition, what works and what doesn't work. Everyone has their own kind of way of doing it. And you do, like, you hear people say, no, well, this is what I do, and, you know, walk in and think about the fact you've already got the job, you're just doing work, you know, things like all these different things. But I find it difficult when you're doing, especially with tapes, if you're doing a tape and, you know, you got like, okay, should I do, you know, a couple of takes that are pretty similar, or do I do 2 takes that are completely different? Or is that going to throw off the casting director? It's like all these things you can do, but, you know, having the number of, I've had so many casting directors on here, and they're like, to be honest, you can be the best actor, you can be the best person for the job, you fit it all perfectly. But if you look like that casting director's bully from school, or you remind them of someone they don't like, or, you know, it can be completely subconscious. It can be something they're not even registering what they're feeling, but they're like, no, not this person, not for me. it's completely out of your control. And that's the hard thing, isn't it?
So on that, it's controlling the controllables, isn't it? And I remember once in between work, I had this opportunity. They were casting a Brad Pitt movie. It was World War Z, and they needed someone to read his lines. They were trying to cast his wife and someone that was gonna. So they said, "Are you available?" So I was doing it. I was a reader, and it was fascinating because I'd never been on that side before, and we had some incredible actors coming in, and one person, an actor I really respect, actually came in and smashed it. And then we had a break where the director went to talk to a higher profile actor, and it was just if that higher profile actor was available and liked the script, I mean, he took her to lunch, that would have been her part. So that actor that came in and absolutely smashed it, that it's an uncontrollable situation, isn't it? You know, that really taught me a lot. But then we had two other actors come in that I think is quite interesting for this. One person came in and just looked like otherworldly glorious. Came in, had this like coat hanging over her shoulders. The coat just sort of dropped off her shoulders and landed on the chair perfectly. She sat down, and I thought, okay, this is gonna be the person. And then it became quite clear she hadn't read even the sides.
Wow.
And I thought, wow. I mean, the audacity.
Yeah.
It was so blatantly obvious that before she turned the page, she sort of said, "Look, I just don't know why I'm saying that line." And then the line was something like, "Let's get out of here." And the director said, "Yeah, because if you turn the next page, you see that it's blowing up. The things that there's bombs going off." Oh, right. So then that happened.
Wow.
And then this, so that was interesting. And then there was this other actor that came in who comes in really humble, puts her stuff down, and just has this energy that she's ready to work, you know. And the casting director said, "Please, can I tell them? Please, can I tell them?" And she like looks crestfallen. She's like, "No." And then she gets very embarrassed. The part they were casting was an Israeli character, and this actress was from Spain. Her audition was on Monday. She had gone to Israel for the weekend purely for research. And the director was like, "No, you never." And she said, "Look, I'm in the fortunate position where I've just done a good job, which helped me pay for that. I've got no family commitments, and I see it as tools for me. I've never been to that part of the world, so I found it really useful to go." And so she said, "If I'm going to be depicting that, I need to have felt the soil under my feet. I need to have eaten the food. I need to have understood the."
Yeah.
And then with the audition, I'm just supposed to be reading, and we're reading. She's like, "Sorry, do you mind if we just do the scene?" She gets me up, and the director's like, "Yeah, no problem." He's now kind of filming her freehand, and I'm trying to stay out the shot, kind of give her what she needs for the scene. And afterwards, the director says, "That was incredible." He says, "She's not right for the part." And he says, "Look, we need to go to Israel because I don't think we're going to find anyone that does that, but we need an Israeli to do it." But about an hour later, one of the producers comes in and he says to the casting director, "What was the name of that actor? Can you give that actor's name to this?" He says to the producer, "You've got to find something for her. She's incredible." So I learned a few things that day. What that actress was doing was controlling the controllables. I'm not saying you have to go to Israel if you're doing that, but certainly what the key thing was her commitment to that moment. And also for me, she took her moment. You know, she had an idea of like how she wanted and the vibe she wanted to create in the room, moving furniture around like to suit her. I mean,
that's
incredible.
Amazing. Yeah.
Just that energy. I'm not saying go in and start rearranging people's offices, but just have that energy of like, it's that, I think you hinted to it, you know, if you get the opportunity to audition or to read for something, like rather than, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if I got this part, but actually to kind of think, I get to play this part for 15 minutes, so I'm going to have fun doing that, and I'm going to enjoy that.
You know, someone comes into a room and they either embody the character or they take control of the room, but in a good way. And I did a film called Northern Soul, and I was in the casting process of it because I'd already been cast. And like you say, being the other end of the camera when you're doing castings like that, it's a very different experience. And there was a guy that came in to play a pretty kind of loose cannon character in the film. And out of everyone that came in, we did a couple of days of castings. This guy came in, he ended up getting the part. Jack Gordon, he's a brilliant actor. And he basically, we did not see this coming, but essentially he's playing this guy that's meant to be high on drugs. He's meant to have a bag full of speed that he's trying to sell. He's like this lunatic character. He bursts into the room. He's pulled a bin bag out of the bin in the hallway of the casting like room, which has got all actual rubbish in it. He's pulled that and he's slung it over his back. And he's burst in the door like this, and we're like, "What? Who's this guy?" Like, we didn't even realize he was coming in. And then he just starts doing the scene straight away, and he's there. Wow. And as he's doing it, we're all just like, and he, at the time, he was completely wrong for the part. Really, he didn't look anything like was written on the page. But he came in and he was that character. And we were all just so on edge. And that character was all about putting everyone in the room on edge. And he did exactly that. And we were all just blown away by it. And I'm sure with some casting directors, some directors, that might not work. It might be a bit like too much. But when he did that, I watched it and I just thought, wow, you've, similarly to the story you told, where someone's got their idea of what they're going to do in their head and they've gone for it 100%. And it's worked out that time. But it's one of those things you just think, oh, you've got to have some balls to do.
You got to have belief, haven't you? And you've got to have conviction, maybe is the word. But I must say, she was also very malleable as well. She didn't come in locked, as in this. You know, she took on notes. She had an interpretation that she wanted to give, and then she was also very, very, we workshopped that scene, and if nothing else, the director worked out and realized what he realized through a really effective workshop of that material, workshopping of that material. You know,
there's a lot of people in this industry. We've told a couple of stories there, one with zero commitment that has come in and not even looked at the script, and then you've got someone like that, and it's amazing, isn't it, that those two things in the same room can exist. It's mad. But I'd like to talk about, obviously you've gone on to you've worked with some incredible people. You know, one of the big ones, obviously doing Interstellar, in part of the Batman series, small part in that, but like getting to work with Christopher Nolan and the Wachowskis and people like this. Does it feel, I mean, you've been doing this 20 or so years. Once you get to that point and you're on these sets, do you feel ready, or are you still absolutely shitting yourself?
Yeah. In fact, that poster is the Dark Knight Rises poster. You can't really see it, but and I was cut out of that movie. But the reason that's up there is when I got the call to say I had the job, it came 2 hours after I was contemplating jacking it in.
Wow.
Yeah. So every time I come up to my study, come up the stairs, that's a reminder of that moment, that 11th hour.
Fair play,
moment.
man.
So your question is, are you still shitting yourself, or are you now feeling very comfortable?
Yeah, does that ever go away? You know, when you're going onto a set with someone like that, or you know, a
Yeah,
big Hollywood movie, the stakes have
I,
obviously got to be higher.
yeah, I don't think it goes away. I certainly enjoy the challenge now.
Mm.
I enjoy it more because I guess I'm a bit freer in the sense that it's a bit like, you know, if you do a play and there's a massive monologue coming, until you do that the first time and get through it the first time in rehearsals, you're never quite sure, are you? So there's that wonderful quote that I heard when Anne-Marie Duff accepted her Olivier. For Joan of Arc, she described it as taking on a part like that, and she said, it's a bit like standing on a tall building and people down below going, come on, jump, we'll catch you. And that's the people that you work with, and you jump and then they just float with you. And I think it's a bit like that when you step on set. Like, it can be a bit lonely, but if you're working with really supportive people, like the Wachowskis, for example, they have the ability to help you and carry you and catch you and help you and guide you through it. There was a moment on Interstellar where the first day I arrived in the hotel, and I thought, I'll just grab a bit of dinner and then go off to bed, go through my lines and whatnot. And then I realized that someone called my name, and I turned around and it was Anne Hathaway. And I kind of just zoned in on her. She was a real friendly face. When I had my makeup test, she was one of the first people I met. And she was like, oh my God, David, nice to see you. She'd done her homework to know who I was. And so she sort of beckoned me over. So I went over to join her, and then realized that at this table was Matthew McConaughey, Christopher Nolan, Matt Damon, and myself. And I just thought, whoa, this has just gotten very real, because not only are very successful people sat around me, they're also millionaires. There are also a lot of Oscars sat around this table. I think Matthew hadn't won his at that point, but there was a big storm around.
He was having the beginning of his reconnaissance, wasn't he, at that point?
Yeah. And the movie, that the name's gone out of my head, which he won it for.
Dallas Buyers
Club.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was doing the circuit and the rounds, and then obviously Matt Damon, Good Will Hunting and whatnot, and Christopher Nolan. So anyway, I kind of met them and felt really relaxed. They did a brilliant job at kind of welcoming me in, relaxing me, and then on the first day, the first scene that we shot there's a scene where we go to this ice planet in Interstellar, and McConaughey's character kind of shows us the promise of the planet, which is kind of in his head, made up or maybe not. And so we're walking around this planet on this massive iceberg in Iceland, and Chris says, right, let's just run some lines. So we're running these lines, and then there's this enormous gap that happens, and I'm thinking, don't remember a gap like this. And I'm looking around thinking, oh, someone's forgotten their lines. Wow, that's embarrassing. And then I'm like, oh man, that's me. That is me. And I wanted the ground to just swallow me up. But so I looked at Christopher Nolan, and I kind of was like, sorry, line. And he was like, I don't know. And he just looked back at me like, I thought, oh. But what I realized in that moment for me was like him going, I filled out forms, you filled out forms to say that you are an alien of outstanding ability. That's what you have to get an O1 to work abroad in America. There's so many people that he could have cast in this job, in this moment. And I really appreciated it because I felt like, okay, I hear you. And the line came back and I switched on. And from that moment, I didn't drop a line. I didn't drop a moment, a minute, right up until I was on the plane on the way back home. And I knew that because when I'd got on the plane, my body physically shook for about 30 minutes on the plane. And I thought, just that release of what I'd just been through. So yeah, it comes and it goes. I feel a little more comfortable in certain areas.
Now for a quick break. Are you a writer, director, actor, costume designer, perhaps makeup artist? Are you interested in camera? This is the place to share your journey. We want to hear from you. How did you start your career? Has it started yet? And perhaps, if you're feeling brave, share with us your most embarrassing film-related moment. So slip into our DMs at Life in Film Pod on Instagram. Check out the Patreon at patreon.com/Life in Film, where you'll get episodes early and uncut, amongst other treats. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy this episode, please leave us a positive rating. Add us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Life in Film Pod, and find our video episodes on YouTube by searching Elliot James Langridge Life in Film. Essentially, please like and subscribe everything. It makes a huge difference. Thank you. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Do you work in the film industry? Are you freelance? Or perhaps you have a 9-to-5? No matter what you do, mental health affects us all. I struggled early on in my career with the uncertainty of if and when I would ever work again, struggling to pay my bills, or simply with anxiety. Don't know about you, but being an actor, it's very important for me to maintain structure in the downtimes, and I found not only exercise, but talking to someone for me was a game changer. And so Life in Film has partnered with BetterHelp to provide you with access to the largest online therapy service in the world. And it can all be done from the comfort of your own home, from a phone, tablet or laptop. No commute, cutting down travel costs, and most importantly, it's affordable. With over 1,000 therapists in the UK, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a wide variety of expertise in mental health. If you need someone to talk to and you're thinking of giving therapy a go, BetterHelp is a great option. And being a listener of the podcast, you get 10% off. That's 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. That's betterhelp.com/lifeinfilm. And back to the show.
You know, with the Diplomat, there's such kind of a lot of dialogue, and the writing for me is so good that you don't want to let Deborah down or Anna down, and so I find it takes a lot of time to kind of prepare for that. But when you are given one of those real political speaky bits, it it does make you think, okay, this is going to be a lot. But then there is that, I don't know, it's like taking a penalty, or that thing of being at the top of a building. You're like, bring it on.
It's the big moment.
I get more excited about it, about playing the moments, finding the music within it now. Sorry, there's a long way of answering that question.
No, that was really interesting. I mean, The Diplomat, as you say, it being a political drama, and it's a bit like doing a medical drama where there's all these words that you can't get them wrong, because it's it's not like a casual, let's just do a bit of improvisation here. I'm sure it's all very written down to what it needs to be.
So precise.
Yeah, I can imagine. And what the experience of working on something like that? I mean, you've become, looking at the jobs you've done recently, you've done a lot of Netflix series and dramas. You're like the face of Netflix these days, with all these amazing jobs that you've had, one after the other. What was your experience on The Diplomat like?
I loved it, and I've really enjoyed, actually. I really enjoyed working for Netflix. I don't know if that sounds a bit coy, but I just, or a bit cute, but I've just found, okay, so the Diplomat, when that came along, I had said to my agent, I don't want to do more, TV, a job like that, which comes with a commitment, and it's a long, it's like eight episodes, the potential to go on. I just felt like maybe I'd love to go back and do some film, or do like some one and done TV, and he said, yeah, but I think you should read this. And so I read it, and I thought, this is, and even, the episode I read, Dennison doesn't appear much in it, but I thought there's something quite special in this writing, actually. I just found it funny, witty, intelligent. It felt like it was based on some good research and some real kind of detailed reworking and rehashing of script to knit it together that well. Felt like, for me, these were people that I could trust, even if I haven't seen the rest of the episodes. I felt like I could trust the people that were behind that. And so then I met Deborah, and she explained to me her thoughts around Dennis and around who he was, and was also interested to hear my thoughts around who I thought he was and the type of person that I thought he was. And that was one of those aligning moments where we kind of saw the same person. And then it just happened at an odd time for me, where I seemed to just have offers come in, which is not a regular, I think some people assume that, or it's not a regular thing for me, but it was just crazy. It's like one offer, like within a week we had 4 different things that I could do. But the Diplomat, I couldn't. The others, we could have probably combined them, and I could have done maybe 2 of them, maybe 3 at a push. But the Diplomat was kind of on its own, because of how involved it was. And also, I'd said to my agent, this is scary in a good way, because the dialogue is that tight. The information that I'll be conveying on the show, I need to have a real handle on it. So there's a lot of research that I'm going to have to do around the subject and the script anyway. But it's work that I want to do. Having met them and having read it, I want to do this. So that was the one that we went after. Of course, you make a decision like that and it could all go wrong. You arrive on set, and then suddenly you're working with people that are like, there's not an alignment, and it's kind of jarring. But I have to say, get on set, and I'm thinking, this is working. So much so that we sort of joked about it, that, if you look around, there's that thing as actors, if you look around and you can't see who the dick is, then it must be you. And so I've still not found out who that is. So maybe it's me in all of it. But I really enjoyed the people. I really enjoyed their approach to, and all different. We all have very different approaches to it, but I think we arrived on set at the same place, wanting to serve the piece in the best way that we could. And then, so that was that. We filmed it, and then they showed me. I was very fortunate. They showed me all the episodes before speaking to you guys, before it came out. I felt really good about what I was watching. I just felt like, wow, it's not often like you'll read something and then have the experience of doing it, and then it turns out how you, even better than you imagined it would. But that was the case for this. And then by that point, you sort of hand it over to the audience, and it seems like it's been received really well. Like, the feedback, it's been quite overwhelming, actually, the feedback that I've gotten from it. So in terms of how it's gone, I don't think it could have gone any better. And I'm really pleased that was the decision that we came to all those months ago.
Well, as you say, it is one of those shows that I did not expect to have too much humor in, but it's done in a way where, you know, there's all these complicated words being thrown around. There's a lot of things to keep track of, but then they find moments to find lightness and humor, which I really love, because I think it just makes something so watchable. To have that mixture,
You need it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think sometimes shows these days, and with films particularly, actually, when there isn't that lightness of touch when it comes to, you know, and you don't, it makes you care less about the characters sometimes when you can't have the light with the dark. If it's just one note the whole time, you're a bit like, you have to kind of pace yourself with watching it. But this feels like, you know, you could binge it pretty easily, to be honest. We've run out of time almost now, but I want to ask you a few things quickly. There's one very important question I have to ask you, actually. Carnival Row. Now, what were the discussions about the hat? Because you having the horns and the hat, I was watching that and I was thinking, they must have had a discussion about which side it goes on. Can it go just on top? There was a lot of...
Yeah. Well, so interestingly, they were like, he wants to be a gent, he should have a hat, because, you know, that time, that signified how much of a gent you were. So they were like, fine, we'll just get him a hat. But then we had to go to, we filmed in Prague, they had to go to London, to a top hat makers in London, and give the dimensions and the a kind of a sort of prosthetic of the shape of my head with the horns on, and they built a hat for his head. And interestingly enough, the day that I went in to have that hat fitted, the fantastic actress who worked opposite me, Tamsin Merchant, was in having a fitting, and she was there for this amazing kind of placing of the hat on the horns. And then the next day we turned up to work, and she said, I had the most vivid dream last night. I was like, okay. She said, you were in it. I was like, okay. She said, it was your hat fitting. And I think I dreamt my first book.
Oh, wow.
And she went away. And if you look, she has this #1 selling book called The Hat Makers, which was birthed from the fitting of that hat.
Wow.
And she's like signed a 3-book deal. She's done the second one. And I think she's now this accomplished writer.
That's
so
amazing.
The hat answers for a lot. The hat doesn't appear in season 2, I don't think.
Oh, what a shame. I feel like
but it was it served its purpose. It more than and actually The Hat Mate, it's a good book. It's a great book. I really enjoyed reading it. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, I thought there had to be a story behind that, because it's quite a strong look and quite a strong angle you've got it on the head there. One other thing as well, my girlfriend's nephew, he won't be impressed by any of the things you've done. One thing he will be impressed by is Chuggington. That, I mean, I didn't know. Apparently, he says it's a big deal.
Train-tastic adventures await in the exciting new series of Chuggington.
Chugs away!
This generation's Thomas the Tank Engine. With something like that, is that a lot of fun to get to kind of, that must be
one of my favorite experience. One of my favorite jobs. Yeah, turn up, play, you know, these great episodes, do about 5 or 6 at a time. It's just great. It's like sadly we don't record them together like the old radio plays, but I loved it. Matumbo loved it. Although when I was younger, I was walking through, I think it was like Toys R Us with my son, and I noticed there were a lot of Matumbo trains left on the
no.
ship. So I started facing them up. I was just put them forward. Let's get rid of some of these, see if anyone's around.
That's brilliant.
But yeah, I love that.
It's very, you know, working on Cloud Atlas, then working on something like that. It's that shows the range right there. I mean, it's completely different, isn't it, really?
Hey, I'm Kevin Bacon.
It's 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. I'm Kevin Bacon.
Do you know what your connection to Kevin Bacon is? Do you have any idea how you're connected to him?
Have you done it already? Do you know?
Oh,
how
I
I'm
have. I
connected to it?
know.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So Kevin Bacon, 24, right?
Oh wow, this might be a different route.
No. That he did 24, right?
Oh right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is it someone that's worked with him on that I've worked with, or I wouldn't
Was
have a
he-
clue.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think. Was
No. Sorry, that's Keith Sutherland. How
I was
embarrassing.
like Kevin Bacon?
How
Maybe he had a
embarrassing.
small part. No, that's all right. Cut round
So,
it.
Kevin Bacon now does the he does like 3G adverts or something, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Is it something through? I haven't got a clue.
So okay, look, I've got it here. So
Go on.
Cloud Atlas, which you were obviously in. You were
Yes.
in that with Keith David.
Yes.
Keith David did a movie
Ah,
with Kevin Bacon called Novocaine.
Novocaine.
Yeah. It was a Steve Martin vehicle. But that's a weird connection because Kevin Bacon is uncredited, but he's in it and it's a cameo. So it's
Oh,
not the
really?
best. It's not the best link. But then that's still
you've
3
got
degrees.
So I'm 3 degrees.
Yeah, is that right? 3
Is
degrees.
that 1, 2, 3?
Oh no, actually, no, wait, because
2.
there's only one
There's only one
person
between
in
them.
between you, so it's 2 degrees. No, 1 degree. 1 degree. 1 degree of Kevin
1
Bacon.
degree. No,
Yeah.
1 degree must be me and him.
Oh, so it's
knowing
2
each other.
degrees. You're correct.
So it's 2.
You are correct.
It's
Yeah.
2 degrees.
2 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Not bad. Not bad
I'll
at
take
all.
it. I'll take it. I'm just trying to think if I've ever met him before. Isn't he? He's in a band, right? He does.
Yeah,
He's
with
in
his
a band.
brother. But obviously he's known for City on the Hill as the kind of latest thing he's done. Series City on the Hill, but obviously you've got what's
so
that
much.
film he did? The
Footloose.
Tremors, Footloose.
Yeah.
Not 24, but I
Not-
can see where you were going there. Yeah, I was
That
like,
is
is he in
terrible.
24?
That is terrible.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. I'll take 2 degrees. I'll take it.
Most embarrassing moments, yeah.
I mean, you've already told me one when you were on the set of
Yeah.
Interstellar, which was pretty toe curling. Do you have another moment that you could share with us that you wanted to be swallowed up by the ground?
I'm sure there's many. I'm just trying to think. Oh yeah. So on the Diplomat, it sort of got out that I, in between acting jobs, was in a Four Tops tribute band, and now I loved it because I had dreams of being a boy band member in my youth, but my voice didn't live up to the dreams. So I pretty much mimed in this Four Tops tribute band, but what I excelled at was the dance routines. I didn't necessarily get the dance routines right, Elliot, but I looked confident whilst doing them. I was like that person in the audition. I just was like, bah, 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 bah. And so then when we were filming, one of the directors on the Diplomat said, do you know what would be really great if you taught me one of those dance routines and we did a little performance for Kerry? She'll love it. She's really into dance and whatnot. And I was like, okay, I'll just teach you a few simple steps. And so I taught this director a few simple steps, and then the director was like, now's the moment. Now is the moment to do the dance. And you've seen the Diplomat. Kerry's on every single scene. The last thing she wants to do when she gets a moment to herself is watch her co-star and her director dancing very badly to a Four Tops track. And we did this thinking like, this will really cheer her up. And bless her, Kerry was very kind in sort of just kind of just looking and nodding, but was like, I need to go. And it was at that point I realized how simplistic the dance moves were, and then found out that she studied dance her whole life and is an incredible dancer.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that, if I could take that back, I would. But she was so gracious that it wasn't that embarrassing.
But you gave it 100%, and that's all you can do. That's amazing. Brilliant.
That's all we can do. Yeah.
David, thank you so much. Is there anything that you want to anything you want to touch on, anything that I haven't covered, or anything that's coming that you want to mention people to look out for before we go?
I think we're good. You know, I've started a production company with my wife, and we shot our first short, co-produced our first short, and
nice.
And I love it. I love the script, and I'm loving kind of working on the post now and pulling that together. And that's just it's just an interesting kind of facet of what we do. To be able to like start to spread my wings in that way is quite nice. But yeah,
so you're kind of looking to perhaps direct, produce, write, kind of, you know, branch off and do other bits and bobs as well as the acting.
Yeah, I think essentially, like, you know, remember I was talking about the kind of history, being into history and the storytelling of it all. I'm just looking at the different kind of avenues to do that and to explore doing that. And this seems and feels like one of them, really. So,
what's it called?
At the moment, it's called Say Less. It's written by Alex Garland, and directed by Alex Garland, who's another actor. And it stars Natalie Emmanuel.
I know Natalie. Yeah.
Pinnock. Have you had her on this before? Natalie?
So I worked with her years ago when she was in Hollyoaks, but then we've had her on here as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So her, Nicholas Pinnock, Pippa Bennett Warner, myself, Joel Fry. It's really, really nice cast, nice and fantastic story. So yeah,
cool.
I'd mention that.
I'll look out for it. All right, cheers, David. Thank you so much for this, and I really appreciate you taking the time, man.
Yeah, nice to speak with you and meet you. Cheers.
Yeah. All the best. Take care.
Man. Bye.
Here's the Laughing Film, motherfuckers. Subscribe and like and follow.
Thank you to our guest David, and thank you to the wonderful team at Rogers Cowan PMK.